Hello and welcome to the Open Specimen training session for specimen checkout, check-in and checkout. So this feature is introduced in the version 10.1 and onwards. So what is checkout? So checkout is a process in which you retrieve the samples from the containers with an intention to store them back in the same position. So when to use checkout? For example, you want to take out the samples from the containers for some testing. And in some cases, it may happen that the specimens that you have given away to the researchers are returned back after distribution. What is check in? Check in is a process where you are storing the samples back to their original location within the container. So let's see how to check in and check out specimens in bulk. So let me take you to the Open Specimen application. First, we'll see how to check out the samples in bulk. So let me take you to the specimen cart wherein I have added some samples in the cart which have locations. So these are some samples that are stored in the container. The freezer is NIG. And now what I can do is I can select these samples, and from the actions menu, I can click on retrieve and click on the checkout checkbox in order to check out all the samples. So once I do this, all the samples will be now checked out. Let me take you to a sample to show this in more detail. So this sample is now indicated with a red box that says checked out. There is a transfer event added which says that the storage status of this particular sample is checkout. The position of this sample was in this box. So let me open this box as well. So whatever position this sample was holding will be blocked. So no samples can be further stored into these locations. So these are all the samples which we have checked out now. Okay, so wherever in the application there is an actions button, the user will be able to check out the samples from there. For example, let me go back to the collection protocol and show you the different places from where you can do this. So if you go to any participant, you'll find a specimen tab. You can select the samples from here and you can click on the retrieve button, select the checkout checkbox and retrieve. So this will check out the samples. If you go to any of the visit, even from there you can select the samples and retrieve or and then further check out the samples. Okay, even this sample is checked out. Now let's say I want to check out a sample, a single sample. So if you go to the sample overview page, here you'll find that the sample is stored. You'll find a checkout option here as well. The moment you do so, the sample will be checked out. As similar to what we did in bulk, a transfer event will be added for this sample with the storage status as checkout. So this is how you can check out the samples in bulk. Now let's see how you can do the check-in of the samples in bulk. So let's say these are a few samples which we had checked out previously, and now I want to check them in again. So under actions, I will click on the transfer button. Using this, what will happen is whatever location the sample was previously stored in will be automatically populated. So the user has a choice now whether he wants to check in the samples at the same location or change the location of that sample. I don't want to change the location, hence I will just click on submit so that the samples are put back to their location. And let's check if the container positions are now freed up. Let's scroll down. So all these specimens that positions that were blocked are now freed up and the specimens are stored in their place. So this is how you can do specimen check-in in bulk. Now let's see how to check in and check out specimens during distribution. For this, I will navigate to the orders and I can create. So whenever you come to the add edit order page, the user can decide whether he wants to check out the samples or not. So I'll select the distribution protocol and here there is an option where I can decide that I want to check out my samples. So I'll select this checkbox and click on next. I have some labels ready over here that we can check out. So I'll select those labels, I'll scan in the labels and add. So these are a few samples that I wish to distribute. And now I will click on the distribute button to distribute the samples. So this will create an order now. So all the samples are now distributed. Let me open one sample for you. Okay, so the sample is distributed as well as checked out. Now let's say that a few of the samples from this order were returned back. They did not use the complete samples, so that's why they have returned it back. And let's say few of these samples we have to put them back to the container that they were stored in. So now I will click on add. So when you return the samples, it will bring the position where the sample was stored in. So let me open the sample. These are the samples that we are trying to put back. So this is the sample that's distributed and checked out. And now I will go ahead and click on submit. So the samples have been successfully returned. If I go back to the sample and refresh, the sample has been restored back to the position that it was checked out from. A return event and a transfer event have been logged. The transfer event specifically says that the storage status is checked in, and the other event, which is a return event because we returned the sample, has been logged. So that is how distribution uh, takes place. So now how to unblock positions in bulk. Let's say that the samples that you sent out were not returned back. They have been used up completely and now you want to unblock the positions from the container. Now some specimens were returned, let's say others were not. Let's find out how to unblock the positions for these samples. Let me go to the freezer and let's search for one of the specimens so that I can find the exact location of that specimen. Okay, so the specimen is stored in box D1. Okay, so yeah, we have found those samples that were distributed and they were checked out, hence the position is blocked. Now let's try to free up these positions. Let's say that the samples are not going to come back and I want to free up the positions. So now I will have these labels ready. I will go back to the container list page. Under actions, there is an unblock button using which I can scan in the either the labels or the barcodes of the samples whose positions I want to unblock. So these are all the positions of the samples that are blocked and now I want to unblock them. So once I click on unblock, the locations will be freed up. So if I just refresh this, the positions are now free. So these are a few samples that are still in because we haven't scanned the other labels, but the others that were blocked have now been freed. So that's how you can unblock positions in bulk. Other option to do the check-in and check-out is using bulk import. So under the in the specimens template, there is a new column added, which is checkout, using which you can block the positions, check out the samples from the containers. So let me open the file for you and show how it looks like. So there is a new field added, that is checkout, and there's a reason as well. So I have a file ready with me, which we can use for the demo. So now I want to check out these samples. The values that are applicable when for the checkout field are either you can use true, yes, no, or false. So if I want to now check out the samples, I have added checkout as true and yes for 4 samples, and for the last one as no, for testing purpose. I will save this file and I will import it. Okay, so these are those 5 samples that we are going to use. Now I will select the file, specimen checkout, bulk import, update, and validate and import. Okay, so all 5 records are successful. Let me go back and refresh this page. Okay, so as we had mentioned that we want to check out the first 4 samples and not the last one. So these samples have now been checked out. Similarly, if you want to check in those samples, you can give a container location in the location column and run the file as update again. The samples will be stored in those positions while adding a check-in event, transfer event with check-in status automatically, and that will check in the samples. Similarly, it is also possible to create orders while checking out the samples. If you download the template for orders, you will find a column there which states that if you want to check out the specimens. Okay, so that's how the bulk import works. Now moving to the query, the reporting module, how to check the specimens which are checked out. Let me go to the query module, and I have saved a query here which will show the specimens that have been checked out. So how to create this query? Under the specimen form, there is a checked out details section under which you can find the details for the checkout. So I've added a filter called as container name exist, and this gets me a list of all the samples that have been currently checked out. So let me show you a sample quickly. Okay, so that's a checked out sample, and these are some checkout comments as well. So this is how you can query, and even under columns you can, under the checkout details, you can get all the details for which container it was checked out from, if there are any checkout comments added, from which position it was removed. So all these details can be found under the checkout details. And it is also possible to check in these specimens. Let's say your work is done, you want to check in the samples again. It is possible to check in the samples from the query list page as well. So under specimens there is transfer button. If you click on that transfer, the samples will be returned back to their original position and checked in. So if you see now, the two samples that we recently checked in have been removed from the list, and these are the other samples. So that is how the reporting works. Thank you for your time.